Games, board games. I might be talking about board games, but I'm not gonna shout. I am talking about yesterday. There were a few games that I did play, and I guess that's what I'm talking about. And as I promised, I'm not gonna shout. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good whatever it is, wherever you are. Time for Busy Beats and Board Game Blether, 10 a.m. Miss UK time, and episode 897. What am I talking today? I'll tell you along the way. Well, actually, no, I'm telling you right now. I'm talking about yesterday. I'm not doing a big, okay, here's something to think about in games. I'm just saying, hey, here's a bunch of games that I played, and here's what I thought of them, and I'll talk about Questable and how that's going. I'll talk about, yeah, also Vamp on the Batwalk, which is a game that is actually published, and I'll talk about how that went. So, other than obviously, I did do other stuff. I mean, I did go out, and in the morning, I cycled, I streamed from that, and did the play testing and played Vamp on the Batwalk, which I'll talk about later. But like also, yeah, I want to celebrate just the fact of getting out, the fact of taking care of myself, of getting showered, and I did a quick bit of exercise in the morning. That was good. And today I woke up, I had some chats. I sorted out a little bit about my birthday bash, so I'm looking forward to that. I sent the contract to someone to look at because I'm struggling to read through the hotel contracts, if I'm being honest. But yeah, I'm excited to get that sorted and start working on the actual events and start asking people, hey, what can you contribute? Let's make this happen. Also had some, yeah, instead of chips, I decided to buy some frozen carrots, some pre-sliced carrots, and I just put them on a pan in the oven. It worked out quite nicely, like healthy option. Brilliant thing, brilliant thing. What's the little thing which is brilliant? I'm going to say that, community, whatever you're doing, like it's always good to have other people who are doing it with you. Like playtesting, the whole point of playtesting is like the reciprocation. Hey, I playtest your thing, you playtest my thing, and then we talk to each other. And it's not just about that. What feedback do I give you? What feedback do you give me? But it's also about the validation. It's about feeling like we're on this journey together. And that is just lovely. As always, if you have any comments or questions, please do chuck them into the chat. I try to answer every respectful comment or question, so please do say hello or whatever. If you're watching, hello, I am Bez. Let me present window Twitter. There we go. So these are some photos that I just uploaded a few minutes ago. So let's talk about what I was playing yesterday. We started off with a game by Martin, who's a new designer and has been working on a game. Apparently, it started off with a very different theme, and then they found and they wanted people choosing between 7-ish things, and it's kind of an I split, and then you keep splitting, and then someone else splits even more, and the other person splits even more. And Martin like put some art for a prototype thing of, hey, 7 things or something like that, and came up with this amazing piece of art by, I believe, is it Renaissance, like painter at that just worked wonderfully for the theme. And hello, Jane, it's lovely to see you, who says, social connection and community is so important. I used to think I was antisocial, didn't get on with others, but I realized I just hadn't found my tribe yet. That's so lovely to hear, and I hope that through, yeah, I don't know if this is, I assume that I'm not doxing you or anything, like, like just through board games and through roller derby. I hope like you feel like you found your tribe and you're having a good time. And wait, that's not the screen I wanted. That's the screen I wanted. Yeah, I hope you're having a wonderful day today. And hello, Alex, who says, I split, you split, we all split together. Yes, that is exactly how this game went, because there were different colors on the board. This is how it looks at the start, and this is how it looked at the start, and this is how it looked a bit later on. So we had different colors on the board. I was red. You can see that none of me people have actually died, and I won with a grand score of 0 points. Everyone else basically had a -2, so I was doing fairly well. Um, yeah, the whole game, like someone decides, okay, these are the people who are going to die. Then someone says, okay, this is the judgment. These sins, you will be cast into the fiery pits of hell. These other sins, they may be forgiven. And then the master of or mistress of heaven decides, okay, these people will actually get into heaven. And you can see there were 2 cubes there. Then the gatekeeper of hell says, haha, these people are going to get into the hell. And there's as a 4-player game, it definitely had its problems. There maybe wasn't quite enough agency, because with 4 people controlling these destinies and only one set of cubes potentially getting, I mean, 9 cubes went out of the game over the course of 7 rounds, and each cube is either -1 or +1. And yeah, I mean, there's something maybe unsatisfying about saying, yeah, inaction is the best case. And I didn't win by managing to get into heaven. I won by basically avoiding hell, which for other people said it was really unsatisfying. But for me, it was a really interesting statement on the kind of Christian version of heaven and hell, and how, basically everyone's going to one of those destinations. And Alex says, love it. It's very philosophical. Yes, absolutely, 100%. And this was the first ever, I mean, it had been play tested by the person playing the different roles at home, but this was the first time it had been play tested by other live humans who weren't just the designer. And it was really interesting to be part of it. There's definitely some exciting stuff here, and I'm really looking forward to playing a new version of it. Um, Meanwhile, obviously, like there's other games going on, so you can see. Let me close that. So Elidix playing a stacking game with an impressive stack of stuff. I can't say too much about this. I played an earlier version, but it's changed, and this is a game that I've never seen before. But we always have multiple groups going on, and even if you aren't part of a particular group, it's nice to have, other people playing games around you. There is a food market nearby Royal Festival Hall, and I did treat myself to vegetable biryani and onion bhaji and samosa. I will say that the samosa was nice. The bhaji was a bit soggy and dry, if I'm being honest. The biryani was meh. I wouldn't go for there again. Conversely, the Korean place that Sate knows is very good. I was trying out a new, not just card version of this game. So I showed it to a few people at London Toy Fair. One of them said, wow, we really like it, but we don't want to publish a game with just cards. Could you make this into a game that has something else? Like maybe people are grabbing, and then I thought, okay, well, I guess you could have like a totem or like a little meat pull, and then we discussed it, and we kind of came up with a similar arrangement. And what's going on here is that rather than, so let's say I said, what is big, energizing, and something you've seen recently? And I'm not going to tell you which one of these objects I chose, but you can guess. Which one do you think I would choose for big, energizing, and something you've seen recently? Now, whilst my back is turned and I read out these 3 descriptions, everyone else grabs either a cube or a disc. And obviously, in the final version, these wouldn't just be cubes and discs, they would be something more interesting. And if you grab a disc, you get 2 points if the object that the judge decides is on that column. If you grab a cube, you get 1 point if the object that the judge decides is on that row. So it's kind of like, well, are you feeling more certain and you get double the points, or are you wanting to spread your bets and you just get the 1 point? And That's down to you to decide. It seemed to work well. Everyone was enjoying it. People were having fun and laughing, and the sneaky arguments version was working really nicely. Um, the one thing about the game is that once everyone's grabbed, you need to clear off the remaining discs, bits of wood, and hide them in the box lid so that the judge doesn't say, well, neither of the blue things have been taken, so I'm going to pick thistles, knowing that no one will get a point. Um, no, the voting tokens aren't what you put on the cards. The voting tokens, you literally, so one judge decides what is the best match. So let me make it slightly bigger. Um, so again, like if it was something I'd like to have around or something I've seen recently big and energizing, I would pick friends, which means that if someone had, while my back was turned, grabbed the blue disc, then they would get 2 points. If they grabbed a purple disc, they would get 1 point. And they don't know what I'm about to say. They are anticipating what my judgment might be. And then when I turn back round, there's a little bit of a conversation. I hope that makes vague sense. Like a lot of these games, I'm not doing the best job of explaining it. I'm really helped by moving stuff around, and I'm not doing this show to tell you this is exactly how to play the game, but hopefully get a bit of the sense that yes, it's fundamentally about the conversations and fundamentally about the joy of chatting and discovering what other people like. Um, I did play also Questable. Questable is a game that I played 2 levels of. So let's talk about Questable. Um, I started off. So for those who don't know Questable, it's the winner of the 2022 LDEC Game Design Contest. It's far more, how can I put this, ambitious, bigger in scope compared to any other LDEC game that there has been so far. In this game, 1 up to 4 players, I think that's the correct player count, probably not 5, but 1 to 4 players have 3 cards in your hands, and on your turn, you put stuff on the left or right of a row of cards. So you're trying to turn that row of cards into a word. So for example, here, if you added a D to the end, or an R, or a card with an R on it, then you could get dumper, like a dumper truck, or dumped, like something that's been dumped. And if you're struggling, you can start a second line. You can have up to 2 lines on the go at once. You can also, and this is more of a fail-safe clause, discard all 3 of your cards and pick up another 3. And that allows you to just go for the deck. But obviously, if you run out of cards, you've lost the game. Now, this is a wonderful game, and the idea of it was always that you would get missions. Like, on this level, you need to make this many words of this many letters. On this level, you need to, and then you start having extra rules, like you need to use some of the lower letters. You need to avoid having the patterns next to one another. Now you need to maybe have 2 letters in the words that are exactly the same. Now you might have to have more consonants than vowels, like all sorts of things that come into play. And there's some levels where you have a little mini deck, and then rather than having to make a certain number of words, the objective is to use this mini deck, and that replaces your normal turn. So the mini deck will be letters which you have to use for their harder letter things like X, V, J, Q, Z. So we started off with a slight shortening of level 11, just saying, make 4-letter words, make 3 of them. And Ellie said that the shortening worked well because Ellie was quite fond of, just having something that you can play it and then you can move on to the next level, and it felt long enough for her. Conversely, Alan, who was there, said, oh, it would be nice if it was a little bit longer just so I could feel like, okay, I properly understand the rules of the game. Andy on the right, such a joyful person, and also wears their emotions really on the sleeve, which I just love as a playtester. Someone who really tells you when they're being frustrated and tells you when they're like Andy basically has the um honesty of a child, but with like with the mentality of an adult. Do you know what I mean? Like, so many adults, like at a certain age, they start to think, oh, do I want to tell people that I'm not enjoying this? Do I want to share my glee? Do I want to share the fact that I'm actually delighting in hurting people in this safe little space? Do I want to share the fact that I'm really excited about making this one word and that I am, yes, honestly, I am feeling quite obsessed about it, and I'm really glad that I set myself this. And yes, Andy is like the best ever person, and also um, really helped me with a game about quickly grabbing creatures that are totally different than counting your turnips. If it wasn't for Andy, there wouldn't be any turnips, and it would be a worse game. And also, Andy also has their own game, Zombie Princess. So check that out. Anyway, so yes, Andy, Alan, and Ellie were the ones playing. I was just sitting out. And it turns out, along our conversation, that Alan, I only discovered this right at the end, doesn't like cooperative games. Like they were saying, you know what? When I actually came time to do all the chatting about it, I was saying, no, I feel like with you sitting there, it felt kind of competitive. Like with you being there, it felt like you were setting the challenge and it was us versus you. And I enjoyed it. But honestly, if you weren't there, I don't know if I would enjoy it. And I asked him, well, have are do you enjoy cooperative games at all? And he said, well, not really. And I said, well, have you played the crew? Do you enjoy it? And do you play? And it turns out that they don't like Pandemic, they don't like the crew, they don't like any cooperative games. And to make the game into something that they actually did enjoy would mean like having a hidden traitor or something, which is obviously not what I'm wanting to do, but it was still nice to have them as a playtester, even though it clearly wasn't their kind of game that I just discovered right at the end. But that definitely puts everything into perspective. I asked people oh, yeah, I just talked about the first level. Second level that I told people to play is something that might be like the final level 41, because we're anticipating like 50 levels. I jumped from level 11 to level 41 because I need to, test those higher levels. So level 41, my idea was make 5 words. They can be any length as long as each word you make is longer than the previous one. So basically, it could be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 if you play optimally. But if you jump up a bit, then um, they change. And level 3 that we played was an idea. I think it was probably a bad idea. I took out all the consonants, so it was A, E, I, O were on the top. Any card with an NRST was taken out. And, you did still have the consonants on the bottom, just for clarity. But you had to make 3 words of at least 7 letters using a deck that only had 24 cards in it. So yeah, you only had 3 cards leeway. And considering that right at the end, you have to play your cards remaining in hand, that might have been a bit too tricky. I don't know. But yeah, when I asked everyone, okay, what difficulty would you give these things? For the first level, they gave it 2, 1, 1. For the second level, they gave it 6, 8, 5, which seems like a good thing. And for the third level, they gave it 10, 10, 10. For the records, they did fail and they made 2 7-letter words. But yeah. And in terms of enjoyability, for the first level, it was like a +1, +1, -1. The -1 actually being from Andy, who did enjoy the game overall, but just said, yeah, it was okay, but it was a bit too simple. And then the second level, it was a +1, +2, and +1. So people really enjoyed that second level. That was good to see. And then the final level, I think that went just too far. Ella mentioned feeling just dissatisfied, feeling like there was no point in playing it at a certain point. Like at a certain point, you just realize, yeah, we're definitely going to lose. There's no way we're going to make this. And then you kind of tap out. Alex says, like, what if you could reshuffle for the last level? That's an interesting one. So you are talking about, rather than having two decks and shuffling them together, basically almost doubling the length of the game by maybe saying, once you've run out of the deck for the first time, then you reshuffle, place that deck down, and you play through that again. Is that what you're saying? Because that's a really interesting idea. I mean, then I guess you've still got your free cards. Everyone's got their free cards in hand, so it does make the four-player game quite a bit harder because there's 12 cards that you're not able to reshuffle like that. And you might have to think a little bit about, okay, when do we reshuffle? Because when do we make the words? Because if there's too many cards being used on the table, those aren't going to go into the reshuffle. But that's really interesting. I almost like the idea of leaning into that even more. And yeah, with an even smaller deck, that really forces you to think about this. But yeah, Alex says, because you only get 24 cards, getting them in the right order might become impossible. Yeah, like everything's theoretically impossible. So having the option to discard could be interesting. Yeah, that's a really interesting idea. I'm going to have to ponder that more. Thank you very much for that, genuinely. Anyway, I think I did. Oh yeah, I did say the enjoyment factors. It was -1, 0, +1 for the final thing, because it was just too much. And overall, like, people are enjoying the game. Andy also made an interesting comment that for them, having NRS and T taken out was a bit too much, and for them, they felt like it was a lot to keep in track. They didn't want to be looking at a list. They didn't want to be consulting another part of the table. They just wanted to make a word and hopefully be able to make that word. And it's, yeah, an interesting one where you are going to get familiarity with the deck as you go through the levels, but how much familiarity with the deck should you have to complete these things? And I do think that having a couple of, okay, here's a micro level that you kind of have a very small number of things, and it's almost more puzzle-like because you have to consult the stuff like the things where you have to make a certain addition, like make 3 7-letter words that rhyme. That's, yeah, that's even worse than diabolical. Alex also asks another question. Have you ever thought about an L deck version where the bottom letters are upside down? Um, yeah, I did think about it. I've not revisited that thought. Like back when I was starting doing it, it's like for the original typeface, for the original way that the cards were laid out, I thought about how the things should be, and I thought, well, you put them down, and it just feel like basically it felt less confusing the way it currently is to the majority of people. So carrying on, if I stretch this, what else did we play? There were other games that were played. I can't talk much about these, but this is a game from Simon that's got a bit of social deduction and not social deduction, just plain old deduction. This is a trick-taking dungeon crawling game from Doric, a really interesting, fascinating idea that I would love to see become a reality. And for the final slot, playing lots of other people's games. Again, free groups, a wonderful time was had. There was a narrative-based game, lots of dice rolling. If you've watched many of my shows, you probably know that I'm not the biggest fan of dice rolling. And we did have like one super amazing lucky roll where I needed to roll. So just so you know, 4, 5, or 6. 4 or 5 is a success. A 6 is double success. And I needed to roll 9 successes on 4, 5, on 7 dice. So I needed to roll multiple 6s. And I managed to do it. I managed to slay the beast. It was meant to be unbeatable, the first time you approach it. The idea in this adventure was you're meant to kind of go off and get some guns. And I haven't actually worked out the probability, but then at that point, the designer made some adjustments and actually doubled the HP of the monster, which I think might have been a bit of an overreaction. In reality, I think that maybe 6 would have been fine, just 1 more HP, because honestly, like if I rolled 3 6s and 4 4 5 5, let's say, I think that's at that point I kind of deserve to blow past that portion of the thing. Alex says it's 1 in 1,152. I'm going to trust you on that. So I'm not going to check your maths. But yeah, I feel like, and this is an interesting point. Like, if you make a narrative and there's dice rolling involved, if there's a chance of someone blowing past a challenge, is that a problem with the game? I mean, should it be hard coded? Should it be like this monster is invulnerable to damage, but then the gun actually just deals direct damage to it, so it bypasses that special ability? And if you get it into the slight spoiler alerts, even though it's a prototype game, it's a game that might come out, but if you manage to activate the spoiler alerts, then you manage to bypass the special ability. Should you just hard code it so there's not even the 1 in 1,152 chance to bypass that? Or is the possibility actually something that makes it even more exciting? Because if we'd done it, we would have been like, wow, we've managed to do it. And then we still would have uncovered all the pages and then been laughing about, they're talking about this terrible beast that we managed to slay in a ridiculous role. And then we still have to manage to solve some sorts of side missions, and then we beat the chapter. But we would have done it a lot easier. And so is it important to hard code it so that people go down a singular path? Or is it better to have things that are open to going completely off the rails? And frankly, that's a bigger discussion than I want to have right this minute. I want to keep my streams these days kind of short-ish. And Alex says, it's a great feeling to get that lucky. Did it make the rest of the game too easy, dissatisfying? Well, I'll never know, because, as I say, there was a mid-game change that, 5 extra HP were added. Jack says, I think that open is a good thing. Thanks for your input, Jack and Alex. Really appreciate that. Other games were played also. This is a social deduction game from Alan, who's pictured, something that's been working on for a while. This is a historical game from Ian. I've not played this one myself, but yeah, I've not played any of Ian's games, but they always sound like they're really speaking from a place of understanding a different area of the world and wanting to share a unique story. And I'm really looking forward to playing one of them one day. Now, it was a lovely day, and I love playtesting, but what I also enjoy is playing published games. So sometime in November, I proposed that we start playing published games at the end of the day. Okay, like we've been there from 10 o'clock until 4:30, like playing our own games, but hey, let's take a minute to get our egos out of the way and play some things that none of us made. And if we want to talk trash about it, we're allowed to. And if we want to, praise it, then they're like, it's a very different experience, even though we are going to dissect it more than the average board game consumer. Vamp on the Batwalk, I'm just going to say, like, I will be reviewing this at some point in the next few weeks, probably. It's a very weird little thing. The closest I can compare it to is a trick-taking game, but it's all about the order of cards played. So it's like and they use the word lead, actually. That's something I have a slight issue with. They use the lead card to mean the currently winning card, whereas not traditionally trick-taking games, lead card means the leading card, like this first card that came out. So that's a bit annoying. Apart from that, like, look, it's all about if you have a card of the same number as the currently winning card, then you take over. So you essentially swap suits. The other twist is that it's Hanabi style. You see the backs of your cards, but not the fronts. You can see everyone else's cards, and you've got limited information because you don't see every single card. I mean, not every single card is in the game. So you're like, okay, I don't know what's there in the hidden discard pile, but I can see those. Okay, occasionally and you can, and the backs of the cards show the suit. So from the back of the card, I know it's a 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, or a star, which beats basically everything, or a garlic, which always loses unless there was a star played. So a little rock, paper, scissors element, another twist, boom. And then you've got the, okay, if I play this card, then I can see the suit, but I don't know what number it is, but I can sort of deduce that by looking around. And sometimes I've got 2 reds, and I know it's one of these 3 things because one of the reds is still in the discard pile. Sometimes I've got like 3 greens, and the other 4 greens are all in the discard pile, and I've got no idea what my greens are. And then there's a little bit of memory, as is typical with a trick-taking game. There's a lot of differentiation to this, to any other game like out there. Honestly, like, look, it experientially, it's still a game where you're putting down cards and then someone wins a point. So it still feels very broadly like a trick-taking game. But from a design point of view, like if I wanted to be strict about it, no, this is not a trick-taking game. This is something completely different. Like it's its own beast, and I think that's wonderful. So yeah, we ended up playing one 4-player game. I think, yeah, Black won. I didn't do too well in that. And then we played a couple of 2-player games where there's an AI. Yellow was winning and like did very well. Eventually I managed to win in game 4. Like, it took us multiple games for one of the humans to actually win because Yellow, wow, that AI was really tough. I mean, it does play in a very stupid, dumb way, but there's a bit of chance. Sometimes it just gets all the stars and then it's super lucky. And also, we are aiming for 10 points. The AI is aiming for 5 points. But it's a lovely game. It's not going to be one of my all-time top favorites, but it's a respectful game. If I had to rate it right now, I would rate it like 8. And so, yeah, I'll be talking more about that another day. But yeah, that's me. I hope everyone watching this as well. Have you got any other questions you would like to ask? Any other comments? Otherwise, I will ask you the question of the day. Question of the day. Here's a little question before we go on our way. Question of the day. My question of the day is, do you like vampires? Like, are there films or TV shows or books or vampire type things that you actually enjoy? I mean, I enjoyed Vamp on the Batwalk, although that's, yeah, nothing to do really with the vampire aspect in it, but no, all right. I really enjoyed Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I really enjoyed that, both the film and the TV show. Um, yeah, The Angel less so. I enjoyed. There was one book that I read. I can't remember the name of it. I guess I'm middling on vampires. How about you? How do you feel about vampires? Oh, I also played Vampire: The Eternal Struggle, the LARP, for a few weeks. But again, that's more because it was what was available. When I think, would I be happy playing that or playing as, I mean, the thing about vampires is obviously they're sentient, they've still got their intelligence, they're just driven by hunger, they're driven by dislust, and it's this interesting thing where you can't really LARP as a zombie, because if you're LARPing as a zombie, well, life's too simplistic for you, just hunger after brains, and that's all you're driven by. Whereas I think that, yes, vampires are driven by hunger for blood, but there's something more intelligent about them. So yeah, how do you feel about them? Owen says, Hello, Owen. If they actually existed, he would not like vampires. Fair. I agree with him. But we both enjoy vampires in fiction. Thank you for that contribution. I love both Buffy and Angel, says Jane. Jack says, yes, I love vampires. Huge Buffy and Angel fan. Also, being human. Oh, I've not seen that. Is that a more recent TV show? I think I've seen a trailer for that. Is that on Netflix? Um, Alex is medium positive on vampires, at least in fiction, strong negative on vampires in reality, and Owen's just naming fictional vampires and films he likes. Oh, Count Dracula, I'm a big fan of Count Dracula. Okay, Being Human is from BBC Three, maybe 10 years ago. I never watched that one. We'll have to, yeah. I will. It's gone up a tiny notch just because of your recommendation, Jack. But yeah, thanks for all that. And now, before we finish, over to you. What are you up to? You can share button if you want to. What are you up to today? Is there something that you want to do, something you need to do, something that you want to share? Please share. I promise that I care. I do not have a lot planned for today. Um, Look, there's always work that I feel like, you know what, it would be good for me to do this. The most important, what I'm going to commit to, yeah, like putting at least one thing in its correct place, like starting a tiny bit of tidying and getting out for a wee bit. I was considering going out somewhere like a peoply, clubby type place tonight. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm still feeling like I need to kind of hibernate and take it easy. But Jack says Being Human was about a vampire, ghost, and werewolf living in a flat in Bristol. That does sound very cool. So, what are you up to? And yeah, I hope you are all well. And while you're typing that, I'm going to recap and wrap up before we finish up. So, to recap and wrap up, um, I really enjoyed one game that, whilst super early, it already feels like it has a strong theological, long philosophical, theological message, comment on religion. I really enjoyed, obviously, playtesting my own games. I mean, grabbing bits did feel good, but putting them in the box less so. But it's something that you never quite know how much of a barrier that is until you see people playing it in the wild. It's probably in a state that I'm going to go back to the publisher and say, yeah, this is it. What do you think? I might send off that email today. We'll see. Questable is continuing to progress. I'm excited about that. I'm excited to see what comes of it. I might actually do some solo testing. I'll see what I feel. And even though I'm not a big fan of, honestly, like seeing all the people gushing about time stories, and I am going to talk more about that, the whole series at some point once I've finished it all, makes me feel like maybe I'm just not the target audience. I'm not a fan of die rolling. I, yeah, would rather not be trying to paraphrase things when I'm trying to share information. I'd rather just share that information straight up. But similarly here, I'm not in the target audience, but it's already felt like a nice system where placing terrain makes it feel slightly different from other narrative-driven games. And so, yeah, good work, Oleg. And Vamp on the Batwalk. Honestly, I'm surprised by how much I fell in love with this. Jane says, Saturday is always roller derby day for me. Heading out in a moment, might go to a local vegan fair later. I hope you enjoy that. That sounds like a great day. And I hope everyone has a great day, of course. And the only thing left for me to really say is, at this point, well, I am stuffed by Bez. I will be streaming every day at 10 a.m. UK time for the next 103 days. And yep, for now, lots of love and thank you very much, everyone. Feel free to share, spread the word. And the only thing left for me to say is actually bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye-bye, everyone. Bye-bye. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.